I don't know if I noticed
but
much of a difference with the morphine. The gas did seem to help with the pain.
The thing is, you'll never know if that's the case unless you had that redone without morphine, and you would be able to compare.
Yeah, but the morphine was quite a lot earlier, and it didn't help with the pain. And then it was at least a couple of hours earlier, I think. And then the gas, the inhaler. Well, maybe
they should have given you that.
I think the inhaler, the inhaler might have been more than just the disengager. It might have also had stuff in it.
I got to shit talk my local hospital. They gave him morphine when we actually got to see the doctor, after waiting in an A&E for already hours at this point. 4 hours after he's broken the wrist, they give him painkillers for the first time. And then we're waiting a couple more hours for him to actually get his wrist reset. And the entire time I'm asking, hey, can you prescribe us some painkillers to, take away with us? They would not.
Yeah, because they have to see a doctor, and because legally a doctor has to see him for them to be able to prescribe medicine, because a nurse can't legally prescribe the medicine for him. A doctor has to do it. It's all, it sounds similar to the nonsense over here.
So
the fact that you have to the fact that they gave you it hours before they're supposed to give it to you as they're obviously beforehand, but when they're resetting it, they should have given you more as they were doing that then and there.
When they were resetting it, I did have the inhaler, but
that's not pain relief.
No, but I think it was. I think it was something else than what you're thinking of. It did help with the pain. So when they were pulling my freshly broken hand, I didn't feel it initially. But then they were pulling it hard enough that, the full pain came straight through, and it was excruciating. Motch can probably remember, the manly bellow I let out.
They made me stand outside the room he was doing this in. They wouldn't let me be in there. And I just heard, the deepest, guttural yell. And, half the waiting room was just looking around what the fuck was that?
Yeah, no, because it's probably doesn't matter what they give you. You're never not going to feel pain resetting a bone. That's
that was
gone unbroken.
That was very unpleasant. I don't want to do that again. I mean, the reset was almost as painful as the break.
Yeah,
but lasted longer.
I know the procedure because I know procedures can be very painful. I got lumbar punctures while I was awake, so it's I understand. It's not fun. Such things.
There were a couple of things. Duchess says, it still hurts, you just care about it less. No, it did dull the pain, and I still very much cared about it.
It definitely sounds like the gas they give you, for when you're getting your teeth done, the certain teeth and certain other things. Just depends how much gas they give you.
I don't remember what it was called. Something with a PH and ends with an X.
Were you loopy after the gas for
a little while yeah. For maybe 10, 20 minutes.
Sounds like that. Yeah, that's definitely the gas I'm thinking of.
It may have had more in it. I did notice a painkiller effect along with it. It wasn't just the being out of it. If it was just that, it would have been useless, frankly. It did also help with the pain.
No, again, they're going to be this. What it did is exactly the thing it's made for breaks and stuff like that, to just, as you say, kind of dullish and disengage your mind while they're resetting something or doing something that is if they can't put you to sleep or don't want to put you to sleep for it.
Yeah. Pumat's recommending that I tell you a story, Di. I think you're going to enjoy this. So what happened was when they were about to reset my wrist, and I was on this painkiller meds, and it was making me a bit high, a bit disengaged. I still felt like I had my conscious mind was fully aware of itself and fully operational, but it had a broken connection to the rest of my body and the rest of my subconscious. My subconscious was sort of freewheeling a bit. So it was, I was still completely aware of what was going on consciously. I didn't feel diminished. So, and I was the life of the party. I was trying to be funny. Maybe that was shock or something. I don't know. But what I was trying to ask the guys that were there is, I've never been high before. Do I sound like I'm on weed? Do I sound like a stoner right now? But my subconscious mind had other ideas. What I actually said was, press 1 if I sound like a stoner right now.
Oh my God. Hey, listen.
You did not.
I've
Yes,
seen
I did.
so many videos. I've seen so many videos of people recording those after they've had that gas and just seeing what they say. Like that's not too bad. Like there's some people that I remember watching it where a nurse came in and this like 17-year-old boy that had gotten this gas and immediately asked to feel her tits and then apologized. And
I should have tried that one on Motch. That would have been great to do right after I got out.
Yeah. And then he was like really apologetic, but then kept saying that her tits were great, and the father was beside him the whole time, being like, "Stop!" And he's like, "I'm sorry, father, but I'm just telling the truth."
Di, do you want to know the best part about that story?
What?
The doctor, who was a guy that they had brought in, like he was a specialist, the hospital's chief specialist on this thing. It was like some managerial doctor. Said one and laughed.
Fucking Christ! He watched. Oh God, he watches streams, bro.
Well, maybe. But like, I don't want to toot my own horn here or nothing. But Motch can confirm that I did actually entertain people. I was actually the life of the party when I had a broken wrist.
You're off your head on meds.
No, before that as well.
This was even before when we were still sat on the edge of the roller rink, and there were like people who worked at the roller rink like crowding around us to make sure nothing happened. He was just like cracking jokes and stuff and talking, and there was this one woman who was like the head, like she had the most senior medical training of the roller rink staff. She was just trying to like make conversation with him to like take his mind off it.
Yeah.
And she goes like, "Oh, so what do you do for a living?" And and he goes, "Oh, I guess I'm kind of a YouTuber." And she goes, "Oh, you can get some great content out of this. Do you want me to film you?"
God, this day and age, man. Hey, I mean, I'm not surprised. These are the nurses that were, if you remember, during COVID, were dancing in front of the dead patients.
No, she wasn't a nurse. This was just the random woman who works at the roller rink where he injured himself.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Oh, she seemed pretty nice, though. It's like, hey, you broke your wrist. Do you want me to record this for you for your?
Honestly, everyone who was involved in helping me was really nice. None more so than Motch. Motch was the nicest. It was would have been a lot harder without her. But But yeah, I don't. There's been some contradiction in the policies and procedures used by the two hospitals that I've been to during this. So even though they were nice, someone wasn't very competent.
Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised hearing that at all. It's what is an NHS?
Yeah.
Of course,
it's I don't want to judge it too harshly because I obviously I'm not a medical professional, but despite the fact that a lot of the nurses and doctors were foreign or like brown, they were actually they were all very nice.
They're doing their best, yeah. Again, not all. Like I said, not all of them are going to be horrendous. It's just there's a bag of them that will tell you to rub cheese on your broken wrist, and then there's ones that are actually trying to learn. It depends more, I think, if you're in let's say a university like teaching hospital versus like a normal hospital, because I know the ones around here there's a lot of teacher hospitals, so you get a lot of students from abroad and stuff around.
Despite the fact that the NHS I don't think is the correct structure for supplying healthcare to people, and obviously it has loads of problems in implementation even beyond that principle. I don't want people internationally to think that it's just like a horror show. It's mostly people that are pretty competent and nice, work like doing their best, and with decent procedures and decent facilities and whatnot. And the wait times were pretty bad, but I'm never going to have to worry about the cost of any of this.
Yeah. And I mean, like, sure, some people may die waiting on stretchers all the time there and then are found like an hour later on the floor and they're not really, nobody really cares.
That's what I mean. That shit happens, but it's not widespread. I don't want people to think that is what the NHS is. It happens and it's really bad, but I don't think it's consistent enough that it's representative of the entire institution.
I think it's on the verge of destruction.
Well, that's a different question, but it might well be, yeah.
No, I think they're, like you say, the system, you can go into like as you say, an emergency room and you can get treated. And as you say, it's not going to cost you a literal house to get that treatment.
You will never be faced with a bill. They're, like, that's the thing. If this was in the US, maybe the treatment would have been better. That the US healthcare system has its own problems. Maybe I would have been seen quicker. But after that, I'd be faced with, okay, we'll try and help you find a way to pay this, but you owe us like 60 grand. Like that would be quite unpleasant.
Yeah, I think the massive downsides is when you're in the emergency room, you will have to, as you say, either wait a good few hours to get anyone seeing you, but you will at least get treated either like sometime in that day. Worst case, the next day if you have to wait for a doctor to be around.
I think Brits and Americans can agree that at least we're not Canada.
The massive issue that happens though is after you leave the emergency room, because I think the GP services and like pharmacies and stuff like that can be. I know a lot of people struggle to get in contact with GPs to further like their treatment, and it's the waiting lists. Like if you had like complications with your wrist now, right, and they send you to like an outpatients unit, you will probably be on a waiting list for at least over 6 months, and that's not good if you have an injury that's dependent on like how it heals.
Yeah.
You need to be seeing someone right then and there every week to make sure that it's healing correctly. Unfortunately, though, with waiting lists, that doesn't happen. So you end up, it ends up healing, and then you go to the specialist, and they're like, "Oh, well, now we need surgery because it healed wrong. Somebody should have stopped this happening beforehand." Yeah. That's where the massive downsides are, is the aftercare further down the line of treatment.
Yeah. I think Americans are prone to believe that socialized healthcare is just necessarily bad. It's not necessarily as bad as you think. The issues with our current system and why it's bad are similar to the issues with your current system and why it's bad. The US health system is meant to be free market provides as it does, and because everyone has the wealth and because people want to help, the payment that you have to give is ameliorated and smoother. But that's the ideal. The ideal here is not really much worse than that, but both of those ideals have been corrupted in different ways. And so I'm not sure whether the UK or the US is the healthcare system I'd rather be seen by. Maybe in the US I'd get slightly better results and wait less, but I'm going to be paying it off for the next 10 years. In the UK, maybe slightly worse results, wait longer, but that's it. Once you're at the hospital, they don't expect anything from you.
Yeah, it might not heal.
It's not catastrophically worse. I think people misconceive it, but there's horror stories in both countries, obviously.
Yeah.
I
think again it depends on the country.
My face when my broken wrist hurts. Come on, load faster than that. There we go. Right, just made this. It's the open mouth version.
Because I'm gonna say, like, with Ireland and the healthcare system, it's similar to the way England is, the HSE and stuff like that. And massive issues we had is just the waiting lists. I remember, like, I've been trying to get treatment since 2015 on one of my conditions, and both times now, I'm literally being sent outside up to Northern Ireland for treatment, because they just have so much waiting lists and other people, and basically making me have to travel outside the border, extra money and things like that. So it depends. It really depends. Like, it can be horrendous for some people. And especially now, because you have so many immigrants coming in and then taking over the healthcare system in that way as well. So I think it's going to continue to get worse. Before, it you could at least, it was more competent, like, not the best, but you could, as you say, get seen relatively easily, and the waiting lists were at most 6 months to a year. Now there's people, at least over here, waiting 8 years for certain treatments, and there's been like cases where children who have been like needing desperate surgery have died on waiting lists. There was like a massive case currently of like 25 children that were waiting for like a specific like blood transfusion or something. They died while waiting on the waiting list.
Something
so
else
you have all sorts of shit like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Something else that Americans may misconceive about the UK. I'm not sure about this in Ireland. Maybe Di, you can tell me. But in the UK, it's not socialized medicine or nothing. We also have private medical care. You can just pay for the private medical care if you want to.
You can. Yeah.
So if you factor that in, I think someone might be able to argue that the UK has better medical system than the US does. I'm not saying I'm arguing that, but because we have that available and also the NHS, which is quote unquote free, you do have a lot of options. So if I really need to get the best treatment, then I can somehow manifest the money and take it private.
The problem, though, I think with this type of healthcare system is that it does, at least in Ireland right now, it kind of forces people to stay poor, right? Because you get this thing called a medical card here. And it covers like every GP visit. You get like some certain amount of dental care that is covered every year, and like certain treatments they will cover on the medical card. But you will only get a medical card if you are below a certain income. Like you literally can't afford to like go either privately or anything. So they give you that medical card. But if you make even like €1 or €2 over, they remove that from you, and then you have to pay out of pocket for all of your medicine. And there's like some medicines can like I know my aunt, one of her things that they give her for her psoriasis, an injection. That one injection she gets is over 1,200, like 1,000 grand, like it's like 100 grand, 1,000, and that's just for one injection she'd be getting every month. So and most people wouldn't be able to afford that if they did not have a medical card. So a lot of people are forced to stay into a certain like money bracket to keep getting those benefits, and it kind of is like a trap. It's a trap that keeps people in it.
That's a shame. So Chilgon's posted an image here of healthcare comparisons, and I think this is pretty accurate. Like, if I had to pick of these three, I probably would. In for the serious things, the cost, as long as it's reasonable, as long as it's afterwards, as long as you pay it off slowly, then the cost is probably the best one for serious things. But maybe the time/free model is better for other things. So I don't think either of them is necessarily better than the other, but the Canadian one is just worse, at least right now.
Well, because it kills you. It's like, you want treatment? Sorry, that's cost too much. We're just going to euthanize you and then take your organs. Bye.
So